All right, we can start, ma'am. Uh,
Okay.
the
Yeah.
more people will join automatically.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Good evening and welcome to today's webinar. On behalf of the entire team here at CTutor, we are absolutely thrilled to have you join us as we dive into the world of mathematics IAs. In today's session, we'll discover exactly how to brainstorm and choose a standout topic, structure a strong investigation, and master the rubric to score exceptionally well. I'm Deepika Jain, founder of CTutor and an IBDP math facilitator for the past 5 years. During this time, I have had the opportunity to attend three of Sirisha ma'am's sessions, and each session has been mind blowing. I'm so excited to introduce our fantastic facilitator, Ms. Shirisha. She brings in an incredible wealth of knowledge to the table with 23 years of math teaching experience, including 13 dedicated years specializing in IBDP math. To give you an even more expert insight into how these assessments are graded, she has been a Math AAHL examiner for the past 6 years and an active IBEN program leader since 2022. We are in exceptional hands today, so please join me in giving a very warm welcome to Ms. Shirisha.
Thank you, Ms. Deepika.
Hello,
Over
Ms.
to you.
Shirisha.
Thank you, everyone.
Looking forward to hear from you. Yeah.
Thanks a lot. Thank you. I think more than anything, I would like to introduce myself as a fellow math educator because that's the most important point which brings credibility to what I'm saying today, right? And from my experience, exploration is something that I think we learn from the students also. A lot of ideas and exceptional ideas come from them, and this is one of the reasons why coursework is introduced in IB. Well, often it happens that students feel math is very rigorous in terms of what they should be knowing, how the procedural aspects have to be mastered. But exploration gives them an opportunity where there is no requirement for mastering any procedure. There is no time bound, so there is no pressure absolutely for performing within a certain time. They are also having the privilege of being supervised or guided by their math teachers, correct? And all resources are open to them. So then we say that what now stops you from being successful, because we are no longer binding you by the usual restrictions that you complain about. You say, why should I do it very quickly? Why should I remember so many formulae? Why is it important to know the derivations? Well, we said nothing has to be remembered now. You can just enjoy that process. And that's one of the reasons why I particularly like exploration, because here I am able to tell the students you are not under any pressure to perform. This is the space where you can genuinely enjoy how mathematics connects with real life. And most of the times, that responsibility is on us as teachers, right? The school keeps telling us, don't go and just teach math. Talk to them about the significance of math, tell them how it is connected to real life. And here I am pushing that responsibility on the students. I say, now you find out what is it connected to. If you are interested in music, if you are interested in sports, you are interested in art, then find a connection of math with your interest, and you have complete freedom to choose your topic. So nowhere in the criteria, that's the first thing I always tell the students, nowhere in the criteria is the choice of topic ever going to decide their grade. So they need not, right? Usually students get worried about, should I be choosing something from calculus, should I be choosing something from trigonometry, should I have a statistic heavy IA? It's not related to any topic. It is related to how well you are exploring. So with that little bit of introduction, I think I'll start the session today. I'm sharing my screen. Let me know if each one of you is able to see the screen. I'm assuming the screen is visible to all of you. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, we are.
Okay, thank you. So we'll start with the name itself. The reason I'm sharing this is because as an examiner, often the first page I see on a math IA is that students start writing research question. The reason is they are used to that, right? Most of the science IAs demand that, the extended essay demands that. So they are getting into that habit. However, the name is an exploration, which means they want to have students dig deeper into a topic, explore it, find out more about it. There is no research question here. It is an aim or a topic. or a title that they are exploring. So mainly an aim. So you have an aim for an exploration, not necessarily a research question. There was 1 year when there was also a penalty of 1 point if students were writing research question, because somewhere in the communication it said. But then again, the next year it was like, where have we even said that research question should not be written? So why should we give a penalty? However, as a rule, I would say the first thing, keep reminding your students there is no research question for an exploration. It is aim of exploration. Aim because I need a direction to go in, right? I can't randomly go anywhere I want. So to guide my exploration, I need a aim or a title. The title is also about the unit in which you are exploring. So are you exploring number sense? Are you exploring algebra? Are you exploring trigonometry and geometry? So what area are you exploring is also going to be a part of your exploration. So now what we will do is, now that we know what is the purpose, we will start looking at the criteria, because it is easy to guide the students if we master what the criteria says. And even for the students, I often tell them, take a printout of either the criteria itself or a checklist. At the end of the webinar, I have requested Mr. Aniket to share a document with all of you, which gives you kind of a checklist of questions that you should be discussing with your students. In fact, it can become a self-assessment for them as well, to know if they have, kind of met all the expected things from the in the exploration itself. Right? So that will be done, but that should be in front of them when they're doing the exploration. Why we are saying this is not an open-ended research paper. They are 16, 17-year-olds. Not everyone is introduced to this idea of math, reading, and writing. Other than MYP students, if we know, no other curriculum has this aspect of writing mathematical findings. We have projects, but you know how our math projects look like. They solve a math problem, they put it on a chart paper, they write some conclusion and end. That's it. Beyond that, they have never really done this idea of math, reading, and writing. Do we have any math literature in our libraries? Very few. There are many publications. For example, a very good publication for the IB learners would be Azim Premji's Right Angles. I'm sure some schools have their libraries already subscribing to it, but if not, that will be a very good publication to subscribe for your IBDP learners, both AA and AI students. Very interesting problems and very accessible things that are being discussed there. So nothing beyond the reach of a high school student. So let's begin our discussion. What we are going to do is, we will be having a checklist kind of a thing through the criteria. The reason is, it's easy when I change the rubric statements into questions. That's easy for students to know, have I met these or not. Also, it helps, obviously, students do a self exploration, and then we'll also be able to clarify what are the differences between AA and AI. Now, the first criteria is mathematical communication. While I wrote only communication, remember that there is a difference between communication, because that can happen in any subject. But here we are specifically looking at mathematical communication, which means we are looking at an audience group who is familiar with the mathematics that we will be discussing. Now, who is our audience? For the purpose of the IA, their peers are their audience. And that is why they have to constantly know the level of mathematics that they're supposed to discuss. That means it should not be very easy and lower than what they are studied in IB. It should ideally not be beyond. Sometimes I know there are extensions, but majority of the times we guide the students to say, stick to the syllabus mathematics, because then you will be able to explain it very clearly in your own words. You don't have to copy from anywhere. You don't need anyone's help to explain. And it's so easy for your teachers also to guide you, right? Otherwise, you will be doing a mathematics which is way beyond. And what if it's not clear? So the communication should be such that, and this is one litmus test. If somebody reads your IA, like your peer, in one reading, without you explaining anything to them, if they are able to understand, then your communication is very clear. If not, then you have failed. So usually, how do you check for that? At the end of this entire IA process, what you can do is in one class, tell them to randomly choose one peer in the class and say, read my IA without them knowing anything about their topic. And just keep underlining or circling the areas where you feel, I don't know what it means. That will just give them a clear idea of what is required. Is anyone raised their hand? I could hear a bling and Miss.
Uh, yes, ma'am. Mukesh is saying Hindi language.
Yes, please. What is the question?
Uh, I think he wants.
हेलो हेलो
Yes, sir.
मैडम थोड़ा हिंदी कम्युनिकेशन अगर रहता है तो बेटर रहेगा
ओके ओके, मैं ट्राई करूंगी सर. थोड़ा क्राइटेरिया हिंदी में ट्रांसलेट करना मेरे लिए थोड़ा मुश्किल होगा, बट मैं
नहीं थोड़ा थोड़ा ही चाहिए सॉर्ट ऑफ करने के लिए.
Okay. Okay. So the few things that are required now, if you look at the communication criteria, there are 4 marks for it. And what are the words that are required for it? The criteria says concise. Why concise? Because the IA is 12 to 20 pages. That's a requirement. So if as much possible 20 pages में complete करना है. What if my topic needs 1 or 2 pages more? Well, if as a teacher you feel it is justified, fair. But as much possible, you finish it in 20. That is the requirement. You also know that there is people say it's 12 font size, double space. Yes, that is usually specified so that it looks neat and presentable. However, sometimes if you feel that the font size could become 11 or maybe a single space might help them finish in 20 pages because the IA demands, not for any other reason. If the topic is, and I have seen some topics needed very elaborate explanation, the derivations were long, then I did ask them to change the font and there is no penalty on that. But for presentability, we usually ask for 12 font and double space. A clear aim, 100%, because the reader has to know what are they looking at. So what are you trying to achieve is definitely to be stated clearly on the first page itself. Is there a difference between aim and introduction? Well, aim is a part of introduction, but why we need an introduction is the topic. For example, I may connect math with music, right? Somebody did a math IA on explaining the curls of their hair. So they explained using curl curvature and wavelength how curly hairs differ. Now, I would not have any clue about it because that was the first time I had read a math IA like that. So I need a clarity on where is this topic coming from. Well, the student had written that whenever she goes to cut her hair, it was, I'm assuming it's a girl, but whatever. So the student had an issue on how long or short should they cut so that their curl curvature remains the same. Now there has to be a context clearly given. Somebody who had done a math IA on improving their volleyball serve. So it was mathematics with volleyball and differential equations were used too. It was basically about using simple first order differential equations, whatever we learn in kinematics, but there had to be an introduction on what they are trying to do, isn't it? Somebody is trying to look at connecting mathematics to understand how much coffee should be consumed depending on the rate of absorption. So they used an exponential graph to understand that. Now, each topic is exploring something very different. Unless you clearly say, where are you coming from? What is the basis or background of why you stated? I will not know, therefore introduction. And by the end of the introduction, which can be 1 page, you need to clearly state, this is my aim. This is where I want to go. Yes, logical flow, because if it's a teacher or an examiner, whoever is reading, they are not going to spend a very, very long time on each IA. So unless there is a logical flow, and what do we mean by logical flow? For example, there is a diagram. Right below the diagram, you explain what it says. There's a graph. There is an analysis of the graph. There's a data table. The summary of the data table, like the mean, standard deviation, if there's a box plot, it is right below that. You are labeling all the diagrams. Whenever you refer to something, you say that. It's not that you have a equation on the third page and the variables were defined on the first page. So you say, okay, go back to first page and see the variables, and that's my equation now. Whenever you are going to introduce the equation, you will define the variables right above that. So in that sense, we are talking about a logical flow and organization. And then, of course, the graphs, tables, everything have to be numbered. They have to be in an order. You have to look at the sequence of things for somebody who's reading your IA to read easily. Conclusion, because whatever you started with, what was your aim? Have you reached there? I'm not looking, again, it's not a research question, so I'm not necessarily looking for an answer. But are you able to conclude what have you achieved in the exploration? What were your findings? What did you know and what you didn't know? What are few things that are still left to be explored? Whatever you would want to summarize your findings as, that's your conclusion. So conclusion is not necessary that I have a hypothesis and I'm proving it. That's usually happening in a science IA. It doesn't happen in a math IA. So math conclusions are very different. It's like a summary of all that you found in your exploration. And we'll look at some examples that we will. So this is 4 marks, and usually very easy to achieve 4 if we are very clear about these few things. And when we share the document with you, it also again gives you few things to be very careful about on what are the possible areas where you could go wrong. It tells you clearly what you should guide your students with. From mathematical communication, we are moving to mathematical presentation. Now, both of them go actually hand in hand. Okay? So in communication, I'm only looking at, is there an introduction? Is there an aim? Is it finishing with conclusion? Is there a logical flow? Is the a presentation overall flow of the organization, is it good? Then that's what I'm looking at in criteria A. Criteria B is more about, sometimes I feel this should be named as communication, because here I look for correct notations. What are notations? Especially in functions or set theory, the belongs to symbol. Like for example, if I type on the keyboard, you know how the multiplication and the exponent symbol looks like. That's not how we want. We want the textbook kind of communication. For example, in division, I can't use a slash for division. I want to write it as a numerator and denominator. I would want to use curly brackets, square brackets, round brackets, which are appropriate for that particular description. That's correct notation. Symbols, for example, Z, capital Z is used for integers. Capital R is used for real numbers. So I will have to use the standard symbols, cannot be changed. Usually we use X and Y for real numbers. We use small z for complex numbers. So we will try to follow as much possible the symbols that are regularly used. Small e, that is for Euler's number. I can't change it in my IA. Phi is used for golden ratio. So I am going to stick to those symbols as given. Terminology, mathematical terminology, like using words like gradient, slope, rate of change. We are talking about monotonic functions, which means only increasing or decreasing in one direction. We're talking about concavity. When we are describing something, as much possible, we will use phrases and words which we use regularly in our mathematics textbook. How is it described? So we want to write in English, correct, but with the mathematical terms. So when we are talking about modeling, we use terms like continuity, differentiability. When we are talking about statistics, we do talk about measure of central tendency, measure of dispersion. We do talk about how there is a large variance or not. Is it following normal distribution or not? So the topic that we are discussing, accordingly, we will use the terminology based on that. So we will use less and less of layman kind of terms. and more terms which are mathematically correct. So remember, this is a math IA. So the focus must be on mathematics as a language of communication. Defining key terms, yes, because each topic, like we said, every topic is a new topic. So how do I identify? For example, I gave you an example that I wanted to improve my the serve in a volleyball match. So I had to think about the horizontal displacement, vertical displacement, angle of serve, the velocity, maybe the height. All these terms had to have a symbolic or defining the variables. When I define a variable, I should also think about the number type. Is my variable going to be a real number? Is my variable going to be an integer? Is it never going to have negative values? Are there exceptions that are not allowed? Like, for example, square root will not have negative inputs. Log will not have zero or negative inputs. Reciprocal will not have zero inputs. The base of a exponent can never be negative. These are standard things, right? Am I keeping that in mind? For example, when we do hypothesis testing, what is the basic assumption? That the variables are normally distributed. Without that, I don't do hypothesis testing. So when I define and state these terms and assumptions where necessary, then it makes sense, right? Between, if am I using Pearson correlation, then am I assuming that there is a linear regression? There is a linear relation between them. That's why I'm doing Pearson correlation. This is important to define. That means the examiner gets this understanding that, oh, the student is a student of mathematics and they are clear about doing anything. When, for example, we do a t-test, right? And don't we first check for, are the samples coming from groups of same variance, or do we randomly do t-test? No. When we are doing chi-square, we think about, oh, should I do a goodness of fit or should I do a two-way table? How do I decide that? Based on what problem I'm solving. So when we are guiding the students, tell them that please spend some time thinking about your problem and what mathematics you need. It should not be an abrupt thing doing one after the other. You know, it's sad sometimes, right? Whenever they do statistical analysis, they'll draw a scatter graph, they'll draw a line of best fit, they'll do chi-square, they'll write the Pearson correlation without thinking, why am I doing it? You will get a very low Pearson correlation value, and then you will do a chi-square. Doesn't make sense, right? It gives a very bad opinion about how much you are thinking. And that is the reason it becomes very, very important. So mathematical presentation, when you're doing, you're showcasing to the reader that I am aware of mathematics as a language. Variety of mathematical representations means what? Where data table, graph, diagram, equations. How am I presenting it? In what forms am I presenting it? And we don't accept hand drawn diagrams unless it's impossible to find a graphing tool, but that's very rare, isn't it? So as much possible, we ask students to use a graphing tool. People do have screenshots of the calculator, yes, but make sure that it is clear. You're showing, there are some graphing tools, sometimes they use symbols which are not mathematically correct. For example, they will, instead of the standard format 10 raised to something, they will have capital E02, which means 10 raised to 2, but that's not acceptable. So you have to be careful about which tool you're using, what formatting. Sometimes they put a graph, but they don't zoom into the graph. They give a fire zoomed out version of that graph. How will the examiner read and understand what is going on? So those are aspects that we look at in mathematical communication. Again, 4 marks. This is slightly difficult because people often, when especially teachers, what happens is they read through so many drafts and so many IAs. Sometimes they get missed. So it becomes the student's responsibility to go through all this, and that's why I give them a checklist. More than you, it's their IA. They should be responsible about it. They should know, they should check all this and give you, rather than the other way around. Personal engagement. Often students say it is slightly tough. How do I even show personal engagement? What does it even mean? Of course, I've done it on my own. What more do I say? Okay. The first point of personal engagement comes in saying, why are you doing this topic? Like somebody wanted to do a derivation of Catalan numbers, derive how are they there. I said, okay, why are you doing this? Well, Catalan number, I'm a computer science student, and there is a algorithm that we studied on how brackets, parentheses are introduced, and in that I realized that Catalan numbers are introduced. I said, fair enough. Now that you have a reason, go ahead. Somebody said, I want to understand this idea of Catalan numbers because poetry, math and poetry intersection describes Catalan numbers. And therefore, and I'm a literature student, I'm interested in finding out. Fair enough. Somebody started doing probability distribution of the frequency of words that are seen in literature text between a English text and a French text. Number of articles used, number of pronouns used, now the punctuation marks and so on. That again, an English student wanted to find something related to language and mathematics, so started studying this kind of probability distribution of these words. So there has to be a reason why you're doing it. Yes, it is for the purpose of finishing the assessment. You may say, yeah, what more do you need? Correct. But the personal engagement will come only if that topic is of interest to me. When I told you the example that the student wanted to improve his volleyball serve, that student was the captain of the volleyball team. Now, I didn't have to push the student to finish the IA. He himself was interested because the math was giving him some direction to improve his game. That's the idea of personal engagement. Another student was interested in investing in stock, and I shared with him a ASA level problem, which was talking about how normal distribution and understanding stocks on what is the chance of a stock going above this value and plus value comes in when you plot um, the return rates or the daily. There is a daily number that comes at the end of the day, right? For the stocks, if when we plot that and look at the distribution and we calculate the chances, probability of certain values appearing, then you are able to predict. That's one way of. Now the student wanted to know more about stocks, and this gave him an opportunity to understand using a topic that was within his syllabus. So then there was a lot more personal engagement. So first point of personal engagement comes in with that topic. The second comes in, though you might be reading, like for example, that person looked at the video of the ASA level problem being discussed. So it's not his original approach. But has he done something more? Well, he also looked at something else and said that in Excel, there is a way of entering the data and trying to analyze it. So in addition to the approach that I gave him, the student added something unique from his own approach. Using Excel, I have done this and I have derived one more way of understanding the data. So whenever you add something on your own in terms of mathematics, that also becomes personal engagement. Other ways of personal engagement is, one of the students was trying to look at probability of reaching the school on time with some 6 traffic lights between her home to school. Now, because traffic light has red, yellow, green, instead of binomial expansion, the student had to look at trinomial expansion to understand the probability distribution. Now, the problem came from a personal interest. And it was a unique approach because the students haven't studied trinomial expansion. She extended from binomial to trinomial. Therefore, and the route chosen was from her home to school. So therefore, personal engagement, somebody was trying to model the best smile. So they compared their smile with a celebrity. So the entire idea of smile was, the how much does the smile cover the jaw, how much teeth is shown, the bent of the upper jaw, lower jaw, a lot of parameters were done. But the very fact that the student was curious to know about their smile in comparison to a celebrity whose smile was ranked number 1 or something, that's personally engaging because that's not a math problem. It's a problem to find out something for themselves, right? That's the idea of personal engagement. In intersection of 2 subjects, math business, math economics, math chemistry, something that they're doing to connect 2 subjects, also personal engagement. Examples of their own. Getting primary data. Somebody wanted to study the rainfall in Hyderabad, so went to the Met department and had to do several rounds of the Met department to get that data. Sometimes the examiner may not know all this, that the student went thrice to the Met department to get the data. As an internal examiner, you may want to write anecdotes or annotations on the IA before you submit, saying that this is what happened. The student did a IA on vectors. They studied vectors before I taught in the classroom. Therefore, personal engagement. So these kind of notes can be done. If a student gathered primary data from a company or something, you can get a letter from that and put it in appendix and cite it as a footnote to show personal engagement. So the idea is, how do I show this work is my own? What did I do beyond what is expected to make this my own? That's personal engagement. So I'm fully involved, not out of compulsion, not because it's an assessment, because I'm interested in finding the answer. That's personal engagement. And that's evident in the way you write, isn't it? That's 3 marks. And again, slightly difficult to get 3. People usually come up to 2, but the 3 comes in only when the student throughout the exploration continuously shows ways and examples in which the student went above and beyond completing the assessment. And there is nothing right or wrong, or these 3 steps will give you 3. No, there can be any way, but this can come only when the student is involved. Teachers cannot get 3 out of 3 in personal engagement. Student can get. Like A and B are related, presentation and communication were related, right? Personal engagement and reflection are also kind of tied together. Why? If I engage with a topic, then I am able to reflect on my mistakes. I'm able to critically say, I did this method, but I could have improved the accuracy. I did the estimation of pi, but I was able to do it only till some 6 or 7 decimal places. I could have improved the accuracy of something. I have got an answer, but I couldn't validate my answer with another method. Or I did the modeling, but I checked the continuity and differentiability of that thing to verify if that model was correct or not. So because I was doing part function modeling, and I wanted to validate how good my model was. So I'm going beyond the surface level, strengths and limitations kind of a thing. I'm digging deeper into saying that what else could I do? I did probability of a game. I did only few variations. I know there are a lot more variations in a card game or a dice game that I've looked at. The awareness that what I have missed, the future scope of my IA. What else could improve the accuracy of my answers or my findings is reflection. So the idea is critiquing. Critique doesn't mean criticize. Critique means to look deeper into the work and identify that this could have been better. Now, many students at the end sometimes write one paragraph of reflection. That's not reflection. Reflection happens throughout, right from your introduction. I talk about the topic, and then I say that this topic is kind of physics heavy, but I'm going to keep in mind not to assume any physics knowledge, and I'm going to, so the way I'm right from the beginning, I'm reflecting. I derive a formula and I say, I was really stuck at this part, but I took help from my math teacher to get this derivation. Or I had to go to my business teacher to understand this part of the data because I was doing I was doing prediction of stocks of some company. The math was understandable, but I needed the business aspects of the detail also. And therefore, I had to go to my business teacher. Correct? So not just at the conclusion or the end, I am reflecting throughout and critically analyzing my own work. And that's what is reflection. Again, 3 marks. Kind of hard to get this as well. Same like personal engagement. Reflection can happen if you're engaging with the problem. Reflection needs you to look at your work, stare at your work and say, what more could I have done? And that's when reflection happens. Again, why I'm stating this again and again is that personal engagement and reflection is more of the student's responsibility. They have to take pride in their work. That's when these two come to three. But yes, one reminder I want to tell you is 4 plus 4 plus 3 plus 3, 14 marks. We have is not dependent on the complexity of mathematics. So you have been able to get 14 marks with any topic that you do. So please tell that to your students. You don't necessarily need to fit calculus. You don't need a very complex topic. You don't need to wait till the end of second year to get a topic, because you are saying that let me first finish all the math topics, then I will decide. Because nowhere in the criteria is that a requirement. Any topic can become a topic for grade 7. The idea is, if you have heard me, idea is how well you communicate, how well you explain to the reader what is your problem, how did you engage with the problem, how did you go about understanding the problem. That's what is happening here. Nowhere is it which problem and how complex was the original problem. Often there is a examiners do send this comment that an existing problem, it was just reproduced, because nothing came from the student. You may say, well, of course every problem is reproduced, which one problem is original? No, nothing is original. But originality comes in how the student has explained the problem, and if that is not seen, then obviously the grade. So 14 marks we have finished, and nowhere is the rigor of mathematics or complexity of mathematics coming at all. So that's something I want all of you to tell your students again and again, that they can choose a topic which they feel confident of explaining themselves, not their teacher, themselves. Then also let them not outsource their eye to anyone, because it should be their personal engagement and reflection, not somebody else's. They're missing on an opportunity, right? What is the point of doing IBDP if I would outsource my IA to somebody else? Then you're missing a very, very good opportunity to learn and enjoy mathematics. This would have been a very good opportunity for you to discover a very different side of mathematics. So please tell them that. And now finally comes the criteria where as math teachers we play a very big role, and that is use of mathematics. This is for 6 marks, and this is where we are really playing a role. Now when we read the criteria, the first 3 marks are absolutely straightforward. Relevant mathematics, so whatever is useful for your topic, only that. You are commensurating to the mathematics of IBDP. Whatever you have learned during these 2 years, that's the math that you are using. Correct calculations. Now, how can you go wrong? You have no time pressure. You have a calculator. You have your teacher checking. Then why should you go wrong? Correct? Maintaining the accuracy level, consistent accuracy. In one place, 4 decimal places, another place, 3 decimal places. Not putting the approximation sign, using equal to even when you're rounding off. Why are you rounding off? It is money, then 2 decimal places only. Why would you use 4 decimal if it is money? Knowing these things, if you are using an instrument which has the least count to only 2 decimal, how will you measure 3 decimal places? So showing that simple common sense in terms of how you report mathematics, that is giving you 3 points. So that nobody should lose, isn't it? So all our students should come to 3 minimum, because it's just asking relevant, which means if I'm doing a statistical analysis, suddenly putting a calculus formula doesn't make sense. Or the other way around, if I have an algebra problem where I'm investigating, say, pentagonal numbers, why do I need complex numbers in that? So using relevant math, that's very easy for anyone to identify and guide them. Appropriate. So for HL, you need to stretch to the level of HL. SL to the level of SL. So based on the topics, you are telling them. If they're doing something on complex numbers, then hey, you have de Moivre's theorem in AA, so maybe you should add that aspect also. Or for AI, you can use a calculator. You know how to sum or difference between sinusoids using complex numbers. So why don't you use that? So based on the syllabus that they're learning, you may be able to guide them how to express it, right? So coupled differential equation is not in AA, but they're in AI. So an AI student should be able to clearly showcase what are the different types of solutions possible if they're working with coupled differential equation. AA, though they don't have, maybe you can stretch them a little, saying that, hey, why don't you learn this side of the phase portraits also and showcase, because your problem demands that. AA doesn't do matrices, but if their problem is on linear algebra, then maybe a little bit on matrices is required. Because it's not a part of their syllabus, they may have to explain matrices. AI student may not have to explain because they learn matrices. So this kind of differences in relevant and correct mathematics, checking through their calculations. This is again one thing that I would request all the teachers, please go through the steps of mathematics, because unnecessarily sometimes they lose marks when they make minor mistakes in their calculations. Though they have a calculator, those can be avoided, right? So at least that 3 or 4 point. 4 points comes when they show good knowledge. So they don't just do mathematics, they also show knowledge. For example, they state what solution is not possible. They reject some solutions because that's not relevant. They state the assumptions, what they're making for that particular problem. They graph it and understand what the graph is saying. They're talking about the domain and range if it's a function. In modeling, they are including this idea of continuity and differentiability. Is it part function modeling or one simple function? Are they using technology and analytical methods in modeling or not? So those kind of things, good knowledge will take them to 4. 5 and 6, what are the two things that are needed? The words that are there in 5 and 6 are sophistication. Sophistication, how does it come? Thinking. So you're thinking like an advanced math student. And rigor. Rigor is effort. Are you showing effort in doing math? And are you showing thinking of mathematics? These two will take you to 5 and 6. Now that's slightly difficult. Not every math IA has the scope for showing sophistication and rigor. This is where you get limited. So your 14 points are not limited. Your 4 points in math out of 6 are also not limited. But your last 2 points, yes, that is where few IAs naturally offer that scope for sophistication and rigor. Not all of them. But then that's how it is, right? In our class is also normally distributed. I can't have a skewed normal distribution where everyone is on one side, everybody is getting 7. Cannot happen. That's mathematically only incorrect. So why are we even doing that? So the distribution will be there. You will have some people, but where it is possible, like the 14 marks, you should be able to guide them and at least getting them 4 out of 6. You're already 17 out of 20 for an HL student is 7. So shouldn't be hard to do that. And you don't have to do their IA, by the way. They will do it. You can guide them accordingly. So again, the document which I'll be sharing will give you some differences, but just quickly to go through key differences between A and AI. AA students are expected to show analytical math working. So theories, proofs, derivations, whereas AI students are supposed to show context of math in real world, use a lot of simulations, technology. They are not required to do proofs, derivations, and hand solve or analytically solve papers. They can use complete technology. That's one of the main differences in the choice of topics does come between A and AI. AI more application driven topics are encouraged. AA more math rigorous topics are encouraged between A and. If you look at paper 3 also, you'll get an idea. Paper 3 questions, AI and AA, the questions are so different. That can be a good way to introduce them to IA topics. They will know. This is how an AI IA should look like versus an AA. And finally, in reflections and engagement also, uh, you have to get into the mathematical discussions lot more in AA than in AI, because AI is using technology. They're not doing analytical methods so much. So their reflection will be slightly different than if you are choosing the right technology to do math. That's a good engagement for AI. If you are using at least two different methods to compare your results, that's a good engagement for AA. So that's how we differentiate between AA and AI students. I will be stopping here because we have reached 6:15, and I know Mr. Aniket told me that the last 15 minutes I will have to give for Q&A. So I'll stop here and come back to the screen and share. Before that, just one last point is, if you want to introduce IA to your class, what are some of the ways that you can do is giving them a small modeling task, giving them a small topic to build on, like something like Egyptian fractions or Poisson distribution, and you can initiate them into thinking for the math IA. I will open it up for Q&A. Whoever has any questions, I'm more than happy to answer.
Yeah, just before that, ma'am, before you start answering questions, I'll just let people know that we'll be sharing a Padlet where you can share your email IDs and feedback for the session, and then we'll be sharing the document that ma'am will be sharing with the emails and phone numbers that you share with us. Yeah? Okay. So we open the floor. We have two questions in chat. Miss
Okay, let me look at the chat then.
Yeah.
Though IB says I request 20 hours of engagement, it's actually 10 hours. How much time would you recommend? Well, I'm no one to really recommend anything, but tell your students, if they're math students, they would understand that if 240 hours are required for math HL, if that's what is recommended, and they're saying about 10 hours for IA because you only have 20% of your grade. I can't compromise my 80% of grade with too much of devotion, right? However, if this is a process where I'm enjoying, I'm not taking away my time of theory preparation to do something, like I had to collect primary data, I had to do some things, but that's helping me, then fair enough. So there is no hard and fast rule that I have to do so much only, depends on the topics also. But tell your students that that should not compromise on their preparation for paper 1, 2, and 3. That's all I have to say. Okay, that's the link. And what is the difference do you notice between the internal assessments? Yes, so AA and AI, like I said, the corrections for AA are slightly more rigorous in terms of their expectation for math. So they would want to see them showing very good mathematical understanding. So analytical methods are expected. If I'm doing modeling, they would not just expect me to do a technology modeling, maybe like a Simpson's 3-point rule, or maybe a Lagrange polynomial approximation, or something that I would be doing using math. My knowledge of math is something they would expect me to do rather than just use technology. Similarly, if I'm doing statistics, if I'm using a formula like correlation formula for an AA student, I may want to talk about the significance of the formula. The numerator is covariance, the denominator is standard deviation between the two variables. So how is covariance related to the changes between the variable itself is what standard deviation is talking about. I may want to talk about when I'm doing t-test, say that, hey, the distribution of t is also like normal distribution. So I'm talking a little more about math than an AI student. That's one of the primary differences that I see. Therefore, the choice of topics also, right? They want to see topics which allow for this kind of mathematical rigor in AA than in AI.
Ma'am, do they need to show all the calculations for finding out or measuring the covariance and all?
One sample calculation is what we talk about. So whenever they are showing, then the rest of the things can be used, technology can be used. But the reason one sample calculation is so that the students knows what is going to happen. It's not that calculator is giving them churning out some numbers and I am copying them down. I know what the calculator is doing.
Okay.
Is it difficult to score high using probability? So what is happening in probability is there are variations, right? So, for example, a game or a chance of something happening. What are the possible variations that can lead to different calculations probability? If we are doing only one or two variations and we completely miss even stating that I know that there are more variations, but I'm not able to do it, then it becomes a very limited kind of description. That's where probability often gets restricted. But I have seen probability assignments, like one of my student has had spoken long back. Pokemon Go, if you remember, sometime back it was a huge rage with for youngsters, right? I still don't understand the game, but so the student had spoken about, if I walk and do play the game and versus run and find the Pokemon Go, then what is the probability of me winning? And that got a 7. Another student was talking about, if a zombie apocalypse, I don't even know how to pronounce that, but if that happens, then what is the chance that I can get changed into a zombie? And he had used the SIR model to do that, which is usually used for disease spread and prediction, right? So there are students who are able to do that. Somebody did Poisson distribution on traffic management, and that got a 7 as well. So it's not that probability gets low; it is about what with probability. How will a student know if the topic they have not been done? There is no topic which has not been done. There are some 10,000 IB schools. How will I even know? And there is no math that has not been done, isn't it? Why are we even worrying about it? As long as I don't copy what has been done, I don't need to worry. Every time if I'm doing it on my own, I will come up with something on my own. Just look at this webinar, right? Do you think a webinar on math IA has not happened? So many of them, all the time they keep happening, every corner. There is something that we are discussing which might just click for any of us. Some question that you might have asked, and I would be like, oh, I never thought about this question. So now I know this. Next time when I do the webinar, I'll also share about this. So it's just that. Sample IS can be found on Classify and Revision. Of course, it can be found anywhere. Like you just type math IA and you will get samples everywhere. Now, but there's still something more that you can do. Yes, please, Mr. Abdullah, you can maybe unmute.
Hello, good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, sir.
Ma'am, my name is Athar and I am from Dehradun
Yes, sir.
and I'm a tutor of mathematics and I take foundation classes of 9th and 10th. So, ma'am, I have 2 years of experience of CBSE and ICSE board, but I want to start teaching to IB students. So, which platform should I join and how to join so that I can teach IB students?
So we don't need to join any platform. I would start with reading the subject guide, and I will read it, like I'll print it and carry it with me everywhere I go, and go on referring to it every single time. And then I will start solving past papers. So Athar, I would say first we will have to become a student of IB.
Yes, ma'am.
Right, IB math, and then you keep solving all past papers and see how much you are able to score. Look at the marking scheme. Fortunately, you have access to everything now, and IB Exchange is organizing webinars. These are free, and these are not restricted to only IB school teachers. These are open to everyone. Please start attending those. Start sharing your knowledge, and maybe reading a lot more. That will be your first step. So and from there, based on how quickly you learn, you will be able to read. So you can start off by just solving past papers and reading the subject guide.
And my question is how to reach students and how can I find students through
Now
online?
that's something I really don't have an answer for, Athar.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm really sorry about that. As a school teacher, how would I even know that?
Ma'am, because I contact with Amit sir and he said that join the webinar and all the questions you have, you can ask ma'am.
Absolutely. So the webinar was on math IA, no, Athar. It was not
Okay,
about
ma'am.
starting my tuition classes. I would,
Yes,
if
ma'am.
I had that topic, I would have definitely answered that. Correct?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
So I'm
ma'am.
really sorry about that. Yes.
Ma'am,
I
sir
think,
has also
Yes.
Mr.
ma'am, sir has also told me that the platform in which you are teaching has an opening for the maths teacher.
Okay, I'm not teaching on any platform. I'm a
Mm.
school teacher.
So sorry. So Mr. Mukesh and Mr. Athar. So this is just for math IA that ma'am is sharing her knowledge. The platform is CTutor, and you can get in. You can share your numbers, emails on the PDF, and Mr. Aniket will.
Hello.
Yes. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes,
हेलो
Mr. Shirisha.
मैडम एक्चुअली मैं 13 ईयर से मैथमेटिक्स पढ़ा रहा हूँ।
Okay, sir.
अभी मैं नियर अबाउट 4th ईयर से मैं जेडब्ल्यू मैथमेटिक्स बच्चे को पढ़ा रहा हूँ। बट
Okay, sir.
अभी दिक्कत क्या आ रहा है कि आईबी जो चीज है ना, हमने कभी तक सोची नहीं कि आईबी चीज क्या है
Okay, sir.
एक्चुअली।
Okay.
आप जैसे जैसे बोल रहे थे उस टाइम पे मैंने गूगल पे जा रहा था, आईबी देख रहा था, क्योंकि कैसा है कि बच्चों को अपने को नॉलेज तो देना है, बट बियॉन्ड कुछ तो भी अलग मार्केट, कुछ तो भी अलग बन रहा है, वो भी हमको सोचना पड़ेगा। इसलिए मैं आपको बोल रहा था कि थोड़ा हिंदी में, हिंदी इंग्लिश
एक्चुअली
बोलिए।
सॉरी सर, आई मीन मैं भी ट्राई करती हूँ, बट क्या हो रहा था ना, ये टॉपिक ऐसा था कि थोड़ा सा हिंदी में बोलना, क्षमा चाहती हूँ इसके लिए, बट आई
हाँ हाँ
थोड़ा सा डिफिकल्ट हो रहा था, बिकॉज वो
हाँ
मेजोरिटी ऑफ द थिंग्स क्या है, क्राइटेरिया के बारे में था तो मुश्किल था, बट
हाँ हाँ
आई मीन आई एम श्योर देयर आर चैनल्स वेयर यू विल बी एबल टू गेट कि हिंदी में भी आपके लिए उसका कुछ होगा डेफिनेटली।
हाँ।
maybe put that question and we'll try to find answers.
मैडम ये आईबी का जो है, कोई भी लेवल का बंदा अगर तैयारी करता है अच्छे से, तो कितने दिन में हो सकता है?
सर ऐसा तो कोई दिन का तो कुछ पता नहीं है सर, बिकॉज
नहीं, नॉलेज पार्ट ऑफ व्यू 70% नॉलेज है, पढ़ने का तरीका भी पता है, सिर्फ पता है कि वे ऑफ थिंकिंग और वे ऑफ टीचर जो है वो प्रॉपर चाहिए,
ठीक है सर। सर
जिससे
मे आप अपना क्वेश्चन इसमें डाल दीजिए, वो पैडलेट का जो लिंक दीपिका मैम प्रोवाइड करेंगी, एंड दे आर आल्सो, आई मीन आई एम श्योर दे विल बी एबल टू हेल्प टीचर्स हु आर विलिंग टू कंट्रीब्यूट, सो डेफिनेटली दे विल गेट बैक टू यू।
अभी कैसा हो रहा सर मैडम, डिस्ट्रिक्ट लेवल जो है मुंबई और मुंबई हो गए, वो छोड़ के अलग जो डिस्ट्रिक्ट लेवल है उनको वहां पे आईबी चीज क्या है ये भी पता नहीं है।
आई मीन फ्रैंकली स्पीकिंग कोई बात नहीं है सर, बिकॉज मैथमेटिक्स जब तक सीखने मिल रहा है तो कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है ऐसे कि आईबी ही सीखना है,
हाँ।
तो दैट्स परफेक्टली ऑल राइट, बट आप अपना क्वेश्चन जरूर डाल दीजिए एंड वन ऑफ द people from CTutor will definitely get back to you on that.
थैंक यू मैम।
Thank you, sir. Okay, Deepika Sarfraz says, what if the student chooses a topic and does the explanation incorrectly, for example, incorrect modeling? Now, so we will know that, isn't it, Ms. Deepika? What will happen is that it's not that you look at the IA after they submit. So while they are doing, you ask them, the first interaction is they choose a topic, they come to the teacher, they share the topic. Then the next time is they will write their introduction or something and come back. So you will be reaching out or meeting them at different stages of their exploration. And therefore, this problem can be avoided way ahead. Unless if the student is really absent and then suddenly showing up, then yes, this could occur. Otherwise, most of the teachers are able to identify if they're going in the wrong direction.
Excuse me, madam. Yeah, so I just want to add one thing there. So, for example, can that also be part of their reflection, that they started with the wrong modeling and then in between they figure out, okay, instead of this, I couldn't validate my answer because of this modeling, and then I choose the next one. So this will be adding as a personal engagement as well as the reflection to
See,
their
if it is a very wrong thinking itself, that may go in a negative direction also, Deepika, because say for example, my data was not at all showing any correlation, but I still do a chi-square. I can't say by mistake I did it, right? Because there it will be like, why would you do it? Why did you not see that there was no correlation? Or if I see a diagram that it is not linear, okay, I'm still doing a linear regression first, then I'm doing quadratic, then I'm doing exponent, then also it shows poorly. Why are you doing that? However, if it is a genuine thing that I reached to a derivation and then I realized that this was my data was not enough. I collected the data. I wanted to collect primary data, but my data was not sufficient, or my data was like biased. It didn't give me correct values. That is possible, and that is a good reflection to say. And then you say that I'm used secondary data instead of primary data because my primary data was not giving me the right direction. That's possible, but not if it was mathematically incorrect in the first place. Then no, that's not a good reflection.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. And for example, they also use tools like GeoGebra or Desmos. From
Yes.
there, they draw the
Correct.
modeling equations and everything, and then they got them incorrectly. So that can be
No,
part of the.
Desmos is not giving incorrect. You are telling Desmos what to give, right?
So, for example, they put the image of an like monument over there, and then they see, okay, the monument has a parabola over there, or just
Correct,
simple
correct,
hyperbolic equation. So
correct,
instead of they got confused because, of course, they can make mistake. They're doing it for the first time. They're using the tool the first time.
correct,
They get
correct,
confused with the hyperbolic equation or the elliptic equation.
correct.
So can that be part of the reflection then?
No, again, not, because that's a problem of you learning to use the tool, right? That's not a mathematical reflection. So the reflection is
Okay.
about mathematics, not about you
But the
that
tool
I
is
didn't know this.
mathematical tool.
That you were struggling with Desmos, isn't it? And if it's not
Okay.
a hyperbola, you thinking it's a hyperbola is not correct. So that won't be a good reflection.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you
Right.
so much.
What can you do if your teacher isn't as helpful, Jyoti? But I mean, you can find help from the internet also. So there are a lot of places, and I think that's one of the reasons why Ms. Deepika has organized this. Maybe you can connect with them, share your resource, and they might be able to guide you. And what is the best timeline to start exploring the IA topic? I would say right in the first semester, once you have you finished at least one unit, introduce the IA. Because what if the student wants to do the IA in the first unit itself? Why should they wait, isn't it? So therefore, but till the first unit is over, maybe we'll have to wait because they need some math to kind of think about. After you finish maybe sequence and series, you may want to just give an example of a math IA from sequence and series. Do a topic on your own and showcase to them. That might be a good idea to introduce. And then in every chapter, keep reminding them. Hey, from this chapter, this can be done. From that chapter, that can be done. So in every chapter, you keep talking to them about different IA topics. So it's a good idea to introduce it in the beginning.
I have tried using mini IAs during the first few assessments only. That really helps them understand how to think.
Absolutely, Deepika. That's absolutely correct.
Miss Deepika.
Ma'am, I have one more question.
Yes, please.
Could you just let me know how, like, you can apply for being an IB examiner, like
So
for marking the
there is a you have to register first of all on my IB, and under my IB there is something called IBEN roles. In that there is a link for IB examiner. You can apply there, and somebody has to verify that. So usually school teachers give a reference of their own DP coordinator. But if you are not a school teacher applying outside, then you'll have to find somebody from a school who can give reference for your credibility as an examiner.
So is it not mandatory that you have to be a school teacher? Like you can be a tutor?
Ideally, yes, which is why, because you need a reference. But I know there are teachers who have discontinued from school teaching, but have then continued as an examiner. But ideally, you're right that being a school teacher definitely is one of the things, but nowhere it is written that way.
Okay. So is there just the interview, or do they have written
No,
test which we need
there
to
is an
fill?
application. There's an application, and the main criteria for selection is the reference. The person who refers that yes, you are credible as a person to be examiner. That is your process of becoming an examiner. And even if you become an examiner, it's not that you are allotted the scripts, because there is a qualifier round. So they give you papers, you correct. You have to, all your marking has to be within the tolerance limit of what IB allows, and then you are allotted the papers.
So the papers are like the AA paper 1 and paper 2. So it's not like examiner is the one who marks the paper 1, paper 2, as well as the IAs, or there are different
There
examiners
are
for the
different
paper 1, paper
examiners
2
for
and IAs.
different components.
But the post like says just one thing, IB examiner.
Correct.
And okay, and then as you said, there are different qualifying rounds, so they may give you paper 1, and then they can choose accordingly. Okay.
Correct.
And then the reference could be the principal, the school principal who can refer, or any colleague, or like the MI or the coordinator, IB coordinator, as you
DP
said.
coordinator is usually who people provide for reference, or their school principal. These are two people I know are usually presented as a reference. but I've also seen people giving their HOD as reference. If they've worked in a school, whoever knows them as a teacher, their reference will be important.
Okay. Thank you very much, ma'am.
You're welcome.
And okay, I think we have short above time, so I'll wind up.
Sure. Thank you.
Just yeah, thank you so much, Miss Sirisha, for sharing your incredible expertise with us today.
Thank you.
Has been truly phenomenal.
Thank you.
I also want to thank everyone who joined. Just to tell you that we have an upcoming webinar on 24th of July for IAs in business management, if anybody wants to join. And also just reminding everyone to give a feedback on the Padlet as well, so that we can share the notes and also share the good word around. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am.